The year is 2147, and Dr. Leora Vance has just uncovered the greatest medical conspiracy in human history. It started as a simple research project. Why do humans age so poorly compared to other species? Why are our spines a chaotic mess of evolutionary leftovers? Why do we choke so easily, get autoimmune diseases, and suffer from chronic pain for no apparent reason? She wanted to fix the human body, or at least understand why it was so defective. Then, she found the file. It was hidden deep within the archives of the World Health Syndicate, encrypted under layers of outdated security protocols. It took weeks to break through, but when she finally accessed it, she wished she hadn't. The human body wasn't just a product of evolution. It was designed sloppily, hastily, and with shortcuts that no advanced civilization would dare take. The document, labeled Project HELL, Human Evolutionary Life Form Limitation, detailed a shocking truth. Humans were never meant to live long, thrive, or be truly healthy. Their biology had been sabotaged eons ago by an unknown intelligence, ensuring that they would never surpass a certain threshold of progress. Leora's hands trembled as she read. The vestigial organs, the painful childbirth, the deteriorating joints, it was all intentional. The human body was a prison of flesh, a cage designed to keep them weak. And worse, the project was still being monitored. The moment she closed the file, her lab's lights flickered. A cold mechanical voice echoed through the speakers. Unauthorized access detected. Termination protocol engaged. Leora had only seconds to react before the walls shifted, revealing hidden drones armed with neural disruptors. She grabbed her datapad, uploaded the file to the underground network, and ran. Because now, she knew the truth. And whoever was behind human biology. They were still watching. Chapter 1. The Design Flaws of the Human Body. The human body is a marvel of evolution. It is also a mess. A brilliant, inefficient, clumsy mess cobbled together by billions of years of natural selection, with no oversight, no quality control, and absolutely no refund policy. If humans were designed by an engineer, that engineer would have been fired centuries ago. Let's begin with some of the most baffling biological blunders that nature has bestowed upon us. The back, a disaster waiting to happen. The human spine is a catastrophe. It was never meant to support an upright body, yet here we are, straining it daily. Originally, our vertebrae were designed for creatures that walked on all fours. Then, one fateful day, some ancient ancestor decided, hey, what if I stood up? And thus, the slow-motion disaster known as lower back pain was born. To this day, billions of people suffer from slipped discs, compressed nerves, and scoliosis, all because evolution did a slapdash job of repurposing a horizontal structure for vertical lifestyle. The brain, a brilliant yet overheating supercomputer. While the human brain is often hailed as the pinnacle of evolution, it's also riddled with inefficiencies. It consumes an absurd amount of energy, about 20% of our body's total intake, yet still suffers from forgetfulness, biases, and irrational fears of completely harmless things like spiders or clowns. Worse, despite being the supposed seat of intelligence, it's easily tricked. Optical illusions, cognitive biases, and even simple marketing tactics can fool our most advanced organ. Eyes. Backward and illogical. Human eyes are built backward. Instead of having the photoreceptors, the rods and cones, directly facing the light, they are buried behind a messy tangle of nerves and blood vessels. This design creates a blind spot in each eye, which the brain frantically tries to correct by filling in the gaps. It's a bizarre workaround that no competent designer would ever approve. Reproduction. Why so complicated? The process of human reproduction is, frankly, absurd. Pregnancy is dangerous, painful, and wildly inefficient. The birth canal is barely wide enough for a baby's head, leading to excruciating labor and a shocking rate of complications. Other species, like sharks, have a far more streamlined process. Humans, on the other hand, are stuck with a system that seems to have been haphazardly cobbled together at the last minute. Chapter 2. The Maintenance Nightmare. If you owned a car that constantly needed repairs, broke down for seemingly no reason and sometimes attacked itself, you'd be furious. Well, congratulations. You're living inside that car. The human body is prone to self-destruction, inefficiency, and maintenance problems that would make any mechanic weep. The immune system, a confused army. Your immune system is like an overzealous security guard that sometimes attacks the very people it's supposed to protect. Autoimmune diseases, where the body mistakenly attacks its own cells, are proof that this system is far from perfect. Worse still, the immune system often doesn't recognize fast-mutating threats like the common cold, which is why humans continue to get sick year after year. Aging, a slow, painful decline. Aging makes no sense. If evolution truly cared about us, we wouldn't deteriorate into a pile of aches, wrinkles, and memory lapses after a few decades. While some species barely age at all, humans start breaking down just as we finally get wise enough to use our knowledge effectively. By the time we've figured out how to navigate life, our joints ache, our hair falls out, and our eyesight gets blurry. Thanks, evolution. Teeth, a lifetime of dental bills. Why do we only get 2 sets of teeth? Wouldn't it be far more logical to regenerate teeth like sharks do? Instead, we get a single replacement set, and if those fail, tough luck. Enjoy a lifetime of cavities, root canals, and absurdly expensive dental work. And don't even get me started on wisdom teeth, vestigial relics that serve no purpose other than to painfully erupt and require surgical removal. Conclusion: the human body, a work in progress. Despite all its flaws, the human body is still an astonishing machine. It may be inefficient, clunky, and prone to error, but it has carried our species through millions of years of survival. Perhaps, instead of cursing our design flaws, we should celebrate our ability to thrive despite them. After all, if evolution has taught us anything, it's that being good enough is often better than being perfect. Chapter 3. The Genetic Tug-of-War. Genetics has long been heralded as the blueprint of life. It dictates everything from our height to our predisposition for disease, yet it remains an enigma in how it shapes our behaviors, emotions, and even social interactions. This chapter dives deep into the ongoing battle between nature and nurture, the emerging field of epigenetics, and how gene editing technologies are redefining our biological boundaries. The power of DNA. DNA is often thought of as a rigid code that determines everything about us. However, new research suggests that genes are more like switches that can be turned on and off depending on environmental influences. For example, identical twins, despite sharing the same genetic material, can exhibit vastly different traits based on their upbringing and experiences. Genetic predispositions. Some people are naturally inclined to be risk takers, while others may be predisposed to anxiety or depression due to inherited genes. However, these predispositions are not absolute and can be influenced by external factors such as diet, upbringing, and trauma. Nature versus nurture debate. For decades, scientists have debated whether genes or environment play a more significant role in shaping human behavior. Studies have shown that while genetics lay the foundation, environmental factors sculpt the final outcome. Epigenetics, the game changer. Epigenetics is the study of changes in gene expression without alterations to the underlying DNA sequence. This means that external factors such as stress, diet, and exposure to toxins can influence how our genes behave. Trauma and gene expression. Studies on Holocaust survivors have shown that trauma can leave molecular scars on DNA, which can be passed down to subsequent generations. This suggests that experiences can be inherited, challenging the idea that only genetic mutations are responsible for inherited traits. Diet and longevity. Certain diets have been linked to longer lifespans by influencing gene activity. For example, caloric restriction has been shown to activate longevity genes in various species, including humans. CRISPR and the future of genetic engineering. CRISPR, a revolutionary gene editing tool, has opened the door to possibilities that once belonged to the realm of science fiction. With CRISPR, scientists can edit genes with precision, potentially eliminating genetic disorders and enhancing human abilities. Eliminating genetic diseases. Conditions such as cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, and even some forms of cancer, could be eradicated through targeted genetic modifications. Designer babies. While the ability to edit embryos for intelligence or athleticism is still theoretical, ethical concerns surrounding such applications are already being debated. Genetic privacy. As genetic testing becomes more accessible, concerns over genetic data privacy have risen. Who should have access to this data, and how should it be used? The implications of genetic research are vast and complex. As science progresses, society must grapple with the moral and ethical dilemmas that come with the power to rewrite human biology. Chapter 4. Hormones, the invisible puppeteers. If genes are the blueprint, then hormones are the workers executing the plan. These biochemical messengers regulate everything from our mood and metabolism to our social behaviors and reproductive instincts. This chapter explores how hormones shape our daily lives, influence our emotions, and can even dictate our decision-making processes. The stress hormone, cortisol. Cortisol is a double-edged sword. While it plays a crucial role in the body's fight-or-flight response, chronic stress can lead to long-term health problems, including heart disease, depression, and cognitive decline. The modern stress epidemic. Unlike our ancestors, who faced short bursts of stress, e.g., running from predators, modern humans experience prolonged stress from work, financial struggles, and social pressures. Coping mechanisms. Meditation, exercise, and proper sleep have been proven to regulate cortisol levels, promoting better overall health. The love hormone, oxytocin. Oxytocin, often dubbed the love hormone, is responsible for social bonding, trust, and even maternal instincts. Social connectivity. Higher oxytocin levels have been linked to increased empathy and bonding. It plays a vital role in relationships, from mother-infant attachment to romantic connections. Dark side of oxytocin. While it fosters trust within groups, oxytocin has also been shown to promote in-group favoritism, leading to biases and discrimination against outsiders. Testosterone and aggression. Testosterone is commonly associated with aggression and competitiveness, but its role in human behavior is more nuanced. Dominance versus cooperation. While testosterone can drive competitive behavior, it also plays a role in social bonding and group leadership. Testosterone and decision-making. Studies have shown that individuals with higher testosterone levels may take more risks and be more confident in their choices. The role of dopamine. Dopamine is the brain's reward chemical, playing a crucial role in motivation, pleasure, and addiction. Addiction pathways. Activities such as gambling, drug use, and social media engagement can hijack dopamine pathways, leading to compulsive behaviors. Dopamine fasting. A growing trend where individuals avoid pleasurable activities, e.g., social media, junk food, to reset their dopamine levels and increase motivation. The endocrine disruptors crisis. Modern society has introduced artificial chemicals that interfere with hormonal balance, leading to various health issues. Plastics and hormone disruption. Many plastics contain endocrine-disrupting chemicals, EDCs, like BPA, which can mimic estrogen and lead to reproductive issues. Solutions and awareness. Avoiding plastic containers, using natural cleaning products, and being mindful of food sources can help reduce exposure to harmful chemicals. Hormones play an invisible yet powerful role in shaping human behavior. By understanding their effects, we can make informed choices to optimize our health and well-being. Conclusion. The intersection of genetics and hormones provides profound insight into human biology. As scientific advancements continue, we are on the brink of unlocking new ways to enhance health, extend lifespan, and even rewire our biological limitations. However, with great power comes great responsibility. The ethical considerations surrounding genetic engineering, hormone therapy, and medical interventions will shape the future of humanity. As we uncover more about what makes us who we are, the question remains, should we tinker with our biology, or should we learn to accept our natural evolution? The answers lie in the delicate balance between scientific progress and ethical responsibility. Chapter 5. Dr. Lethrin had thought he had seen the worst of human biology. He had studied their absurd resilience, their bizarre immune system, their terrifying ability to adapt. But nothing had prepared him for what he was witnessing now. The human patient, Lieutenant David Carter, lay on the operating table. His injuries were severe. His entire left leg had been crushed in a landslide during a reconnaissance mission on a high-gravity world. Any other species would have been comatose, their body shutting down to protect itself. Carter, however, was awake and alert. "Are you sure you don't need more anesthetic?" Dr. Lethran asked, his tendrils twitching with unease. "Nah, Doc, I'm good," Carter said, grinning through cracked lips. "Just hurry it up. Kinda want to get back out there." Lethran exchanged a nervous glance with his assistant, who was already preparing the surgical equipment. "Lieutenant, we are in the process of regenerating your limb. This is not a simple procedure. You should be in considerable pain." "Oh, I am," Carter admitted. "But it's not the worst I've had. Besides, pain is just a signal, right? I can ignore it." Lethran had seen human pain tolerance before, but the sheer casual way Carter dismissed something that should have incapacitated him was unnerving. Even among his own people, who were considered resilient, this level of fortitude was unheard of. "Very well," Lethran muttered, pressing forward with the operation. As he worked, he couldn't help but reflect on the increasing number of reports about human biology that defied all logic. Their regenerative abilities, their absurdly robust immune system, their capability to survive conditions that would kill most known species. And yet, there was something more about humans that concerned him. Something deeper, more dangerous than their mere physiology. They adapted to everything. Lethran watched as Carter's body responded to the treatment at an alarming rate. The regenerative gel that should have taken hours to initiate cellular regrowth was already working, knitting muscle and tissue together in mere minutes. He had seen this before, but it still baffled him. Human biology didn't just recover, it aggressively repaired itself, almost as if defying the very concept of injury. "I will never understand your species," Lethran finally said. Carter chuckled. "We don't either." Chapter 6. After Carter's surgery, Lethran found himself deep in research. He had spent years studying human biology, but the more he learned, the less sense it made. Humans were outliers in every possible way. Their bodies healed from wounds that should have been fatal. They could consume a shockingly diverse range of foods without adverse effects. Their ability to endure extreme temperatures, pressures, and even radiation exposure was unparalleled. But it wasn't just physical. Psychologically, they were just as baffling. Lethran had attended a military debriefing the previous day, where humans discussed the battle they had just survived. Instead of mourning, as most species would, they had been laughing, joking about near-death experiences, about how close they had come to catastrophe. One of them, a Corporal Vasquez, had even taken bets on who had come the closest to being vaporized. "You don't find that concerning?" Lethran had asked another doctor, an older human named Dr. Patel. Dr. Patel had simply smiled. "It's how we cope. You see, Doctor, fear is a survival mechanism. But if you let fear control you, you've already lost. Humans? We adapt. We make it work." That word again. Adapt. Lethran returned to his lab, pulling up old case studies on human endurance. His database was filled with reports of humans surviving impossible conditions, lost in space for weeks, trapped in vacuum for seconds longer than any other species could withstand, recovering from diseases that should have been fatal. He studied their neurological patterns, their cognitive abilities. And that's when he found something that disturbed him even more. They didn't just survive. They evolved. Not in the slow, generational way that most species did. Humans adapted in real time. Their bodies adjusted to poisons, to infections, to environments that should have been unsurvivable. Their minds recalibrated to trauma, becoming stronger rather than breaking. If they endured something once, the next time, they would endure it even better. Lethran leaned back, realization dawning on him. That was why humanity was so feared in the galaxy. It wasn't just their biology. It was their mindset. They weren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced species. But they were the most dangerous. Because, no matter what you threw at them, they would find a way to overcome it. And then they would come back stronger. Chapter 7. Unnatural resilience. The medical bay aboard the Zalarian research vessel had seen many species, but none had perplexed its scientists like the human currently occupying the diagnostic bed. Dr. Vexrel hovered over the human, a perplexed expression crossing his scaled face as the monitors fluctuated wildly. Heart rate, oxygen levels, and neurochemical activity refused to settle into anything predictable. How is this possible? Vexrel muttered, tapping his long claws against the interface. The damage to his internal organs should have been fatal. Yet, they are repairing themselves. The lead xenobiologist, Professor XYYV, exhaled through his spiracles. We have documented regeneration in other species, but this defies logic. The human, Lieutenant Jack Mason, groaned and sat up far too quickly for someone who had suffered catastrophic injuries mere hours ago. He blinked blearily at the Zalarians, then winced. God, I feel like I got hit by a freighter. You were, Vexrel reminded him. Your rib cage was crushed. How are you conscious? Jack flexed his fingers, rolling his shoulders experimentally. Dunno, man. Just hurts a little. XYYV's mandibles clattered in agitation. Hurts a little? He swiped at the display, pulling up the previous scan. Your bones were fractured in 14 places. Your liver sustained major trauma. And yet, he gestured to the fresh scan, which showed almost no damage remaining. This rate of healing is unprecedented. Jack shrugged. Yeah, well, humans are tough. Tough. Vexrel nearly choked on the word. You should be dead. Or, at the very least, comatose. Jack frowned. Well, I guess I'm just built different. XYYV and Vexrel exchanged a look that was part frustration, part awe. We must run more tests. Jack sighed. Of course you do. Chapter 8. The Immortals of Soul. Jack was growing increasingly uncomfortable with the way the Zalarian scientists kept looking at him, as if he were some divine anomaly that had wandered into their midst. He appreciated their curiosity, but it was getting weird. Okay, he said as he sat on the diagnostic table once again. What's next? Vexrel's eyes gleamed with unrestrained curiosity. We must determine the limits of your regenerative capabilities. Jack snorted. What, you're gonna cut me open and see what happens? The silence that followed was unnerving. Oh my God, you were actually considering it. XYYV hurriedly changed the subject. No. Nothing invasive. We merely wish to observe under controlled conditions. Jack crossed his arms. And what does controlled conditions mean? Vexrel hesitated. Physical exertion, exposure to different environments, minor stressors. Jack eyed him suspiciously. Define minor. Moments later, Jack found himself in what he could only describe as an alien obstacle course. The Zalarians watched from behind reinforced glass as he dodged spinning blades, jumped over energy fields, and lifted impossibly heavy objects. His body protested at first, but as usual, he adapted faster than should have been possible. Eventually, he collapsed onto the ground, panting. Okay, I give. That was insane. XYYV reviewed the data with growing disbelief. Your body's efficiency in adapting to stress is beyond our current understanding. Your muscle fibers repair and strengthen within minutes. Your bone density increases under strain. And your neurological response time improves after each exertion. Jack wiped sweat from his brow. Yeah, we call that working out. Vexrel looked horrified. You do this voluntarily? Jack chuckled. Yeah, we call it training. The Zalarians exchanged glances. No wonder the galactic community fears you. Jack smirked. Oh, buddy. You haven't even seen what we do when we're really mad. Chapter 9. The Anatomy of a Threat. The stars glittered coldly from the observation deck as Commander Rika watched the human in front of her. Captain Thorne had been tested, scanned, analyzed, and studied, yet there was something about him that she couldn't quite grasp. The data presented to her was incomprehensible, the physical capabilities of humans far beyond any species she had encountered in her many years of service. No one had expected this, least of all the humans themselves. Thorne was a soldier, tough, resilient, and yet, in some ways, disturbingly fragile. His body, though seemingly unremarkable, harbored secrets that twisted the very fabric of biology. The scan showed no unusual mutations, no enhanced genes. And yet, in the briefest of physical engagements, Thorn had demonstrated strength and agility that surpassed even the most advanced combatants in the galaxy. The alien technicians had muttered in confusion as they ran the tests, unable to comprehend how such raw strength could exist in a body that was, by all external appearances, unremarkable. Rika watched Thorn as he sat across from her, his piercing eyes locked onto hers, sensing the weight of her scrutiny. "What do you make of this?" Rika asked, gesturing toward the readout on the holo display. Thorn leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but with a sharpness that indicated both his awareness and his experience. "What you're seeing is just a glimpse of what humanity is capable of. You're all still trying to understand us. But our biology isn't just strange. It's a weapon." Rika blinked, momentarily caught off guard. She had suspected this, but hearing it spoken so plainly was jarring. "A weapon," she echoed. "Not in the way you think," Thorn replied, his eyes narrowing with intensity. "Our biology is adaptable, versatile. What you think of as weaknesses, our vulnerabilities, are actually our strengths. We can survive in environments that would break your species in minutes. We can endure trauma, pain, and injury in ways that make most of your species look like they're made of glass." Rika couldn't help but feel a chill, even as Thorn continued. "We're not just resilient. We're persistent. When a human decides to survive, nothing can stop them." Chapter 10: The Edge of Extinction. The war had begun to shift. What had initially been a cautious, almost academic curiosity about humans had transformed into a looming sense of dread. Commander Rika had sent out a report to the Central Command of the Galactic Union detailing the new threat the humans posed. It wasn't just their biology, it was their nature, their mindset. On a far-flung planet, far beyond the reach of human influence, the Council of Elders convened. They were old in both the physical and mental sense, and they had seen countless species rise and fall. But the humans were different. Too different. "They must be destroyed," Elder Zora declared. Her voice was a rasp, barely audible to the others in the room. The air in the chamber grew thick with tension. "But they've barely made contact with our alliance," protested Elder Kalen, his voice a low rumble. "We haven't even begun to understand them fully. The risks are immense." Zora fixed him with a stare, her alien eyes glowing with an unsettling light. "Understand them? They are a virus, an infection. They do not belong among us. Their biological makeup alone is enough to wipe us all out." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Kalen clenched his fists, but he knew better than to argue further. He had seen the humans in action. They were unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. The reports from Rika's fleet had been enough to convince most of the elders. Humans were not to be trusted. They were too resilient, too dangerous, and far too unpredictable. Their biology defied all logic. Meanwhile, on the ground, Captain Thorn and his crew were realizing just how much they had underestimated the alien threats. The galaxy's collective perception of humanity was about to change in ways no one could have predicted. Chapter 11: The Aftermath of Discovery. Scene 1: The Aftermath of the Discovery. The aftermath of the discovery echoed throughout the corridors of the research facility like a bad dream. The team gathered in the briefing room, their faces pale, their eyes haunted by the implications of what they'd uncovered. Human biology was far more complex than they'd ever imagined, and its potential, well, it could either save the galaxy or doom it. A hologram of Earth flickered in front of the group, showing the planet's continents and oceans, but the real focus was something more unsettling: a hidden sequence in the DNA code, a code that had been deliberately altered millions of years ago. "This changes everything," Dr. Klein said, his voice shaking. "We thought we were just humans. But we're not. We're something else, something much older than we realized." The realization hit hard. The human race wasn't just a species of primitive organisms that evolved by chance. No, humanity was the product of genetic engineering. Someone or something had manipulated their biology at a level that surpassed anything the aliens had seen in the galaxy. Now that they understood the secrets, the knowledge would either make them the galaxy's rulers or its greatest threat. "What do we do now?" someone asked, breaking the uncomfortable silence. "We keep moving forward," the protagonist, Captain Rena, answered. She was the one who had led the team to uncover the secret. "We keep gathering information, and we figure out how to use it before someone else does." Scene 2. The Alien Confrontation. The first signs of the aliens' increasing interest in the discovery came through encrypted transmissions. At first, the messages were subtle, questioning humanity's progress, the status of their exploration programs, and, most disturbingly, their understanding of biological science. It wasn't long before the nature of these inquiries turned into demands. A high-ranking alien representative from the Caution Alliance, a collective of the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, made their presence known. "Humanity is no longer just a curiosity. You are a potential threat," came the voice over the communication channel, cold and detached, yet laced with a clear underlying menace. Rena and her team stood at attention as the alien appeared on the main screen. It was an odd sight. 3 insectoid creatures, their heads elongated and translucent, speaking in perfect human dialect. The Caution were notorious for their disdain of other species, often referring to them as lesser beings, but they had never been so direct before. The alien leader, Knacker, was quick to address their real concern. "We have long observed your species. Your genetic makeup is unique. There are elements within you that even we do not fully understand, and it is of immediate concern. How much do you know?" The team exchanged nervous glances. They couldn't lie, not without jeopardizing everything. The truth was far more dangerous than the Caution knew. "We know enough," Rena replied, her voice steady despite the unease creeping up her spine. "Enough to understand that our biology is not entirely natural." "Then you understand the risks of revealing that knowledge," Knacker responded. "We will ensure it is contained." Rena clenched her fists. The Caution were not just worried, they were terrified. And that made them dangerous. Scene 3. The science behind human biology. Inside the lab, Rena and her team worked tirelessly to analyze the genetic anomalies they had uncovered. As they dug deeper, they discovered that the anomalies were not simply random mutations, but deliberate modifications that gave humans an extraordinary ability to adapt to nearly any environment in the galaxy. "What we're seeing," Dr. Klein explained as he examined the data, "is that humanity's DNA is encoded with the potential to withstand extreme environmental conditions. It's more than just survival instincts. It's like we were designed for something much larger." The team realized the full scale of the discovery. Human biology wasn't just unique, it was engineered to survive and thrive in the harshest conditions, with a level of resilience that no other species could match. But there was more, much more. Hidden deep within the human genome was an encoded directive, a latent piece of information that could either unlock unimaginable power or create utter chaos. It was a trigger, waiting for the right moment to activate, but no one could understand what that moment was. Could we be the key to something?" Rena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We are the key," Klein answered. "But to what? That's the real question." Scene 4. The choice. Tensions grew as the reality set in. The Caution were closing in, and humanity's discovery had made them a prime target. Rena and her team found themselves in a race against time, trying to figure out what exactly their biology was capable of before the aliens moved to suppress it. A council meeting was called, with representatives from the global governments now fully aware of the situation. The room buzzed with debates over what to do next. "We need to negotiate with the Caution," one leader said. "They've been watching us, but they'll destroy us if they think we're a threat." Another voice rose in opposition. "And what do we get from that? A seat at the table of galactic peace, or the chains of oppressions?" Rena stood at the head of the table, trying to maintain order as chaos swirled around her. The reality was stark. There was no easy solution. She knew it was up to her to make the final decision, a decision that would shape the future of humanity. "We can't hide," Rena said finally, her voice firm. We've unlocked something that no one else has. And now we have a choice. Do we let the galaxy control us, or do we fight to shape our own future? Chapter 12. Political Intrigue. Scene 1. Political Intrigue. The political landscape on Earth had shifted overnight. What had once been a united front for humanity's survival was now fractured as leaders and factions debated how to proceed. The discovery of humanity's true potential had thrown everything into chaos. Some saw the power as a means to forge an alliance with the Caution, while others feared that allowing alien influence would lead to Earth's subjugation. Rena found herself at the center of a storm, her every decision scrutinized by those in power. Global alliances that had been forged over decades were now teetering on the edge of collapse. The factions that had once cooperated in the face of alien threats now found themselves torn apart by the uncertainty surrounding their biological discovery. "Do you trust them?" Rena asked, turning to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Herrick. They stood in a private office overlooking a war room filled with strategists and military leaders. "Trust is a luxury we can't afford right now," Herrick replied. "You know what's at stake. If we don't play our cards right, we might not survive the next move." Rena's mind raced. The Caution were pressuring Earth for answers. The discovery of humanity's true biology had made them both a target and an asset. If they couldn't control the flow of information, Earth might lose its autonomy, and that would change the fate of every living being. Scene 2. The True Power. Back in the lab, Rena came face to face with the full scope of humanity's potential. The tests had shown that the human genome held the capacity to adapt to almost anything, a latent power buried deep within. But unlocking that potential required a leap of faith and a level of risk that Rena wasn't sure anyone could survive. The moment of truth came when Rena herself volunteered to undergo the procedure. With her team monitoring the process, they activated the dormant gene sequences, unlocking a surge of energy that flooded Rena's system. She felt her body pulse with raw power, her senses heightened to an unimaginable degree. She could feel every atom in her surroundings, every heartbeat of every person within the facility. But with the power came pain, a blinding, overwhelming agony as her body struggled to contain the surge of energy. "I can't control it," Rena gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "You have to fight it, Rena," Klein urged, his eyes wide with fear. The energy raged within her, but Rena held firm, forcing herself to regain control. Slowly, the surge subsided, and she collapsed, exhausted but alive. "What the hell did we just unlock?" she breathed. The team looked at each other in stunned silence. The power humanity now held was beyond anything they had imagined. Scene 3. Betrayal. As tensions escalated, the unthinkable happened. A trusted ally, General Aldridge, revealed his true allegiances. He had been working for the Caution all along, feeding them information about Earth's progress in unlocking its biological potential. "Why?" Rena demanded, her voice breaking with disbelief. "The Caution promised me power," Aldridge sneered. "I would have been their partner in the new order of the galaxy. But now, you've ruined everything." Aldridge's betrayal was a devastating blow to Rena and the team. They had trusted him, believed he was working for humanity's best interests. Now, they were left with the fallout of his actions, unsure who else could be trusted. Scene 4. Preparing for the future. In the final moments of the chapter, Rena and her team brace for the inevitable. A war was coming, one that would shape the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. Rena knew that her decisions would either lead to salvation or destruction. The pieces were in motion, and it was time for humanity to decide what kind of future it wanted to have.